Consider Chapter 8, Secondary Data, Research in a Digital Age. Here's our objectives, our outcomes. Now this is where most research, especially academically, takes place for students, is secondary data. And all secondary means, it doesn't mean it's less valuable than primary. It just means it's already been collected. And it can be highly valuable. When you do a Google search, that's secondary data. It's not primary data that you're searching, typically. It's got huge advantages. It's available, it can be cheap, can be fast, can be inexpensive. Sometimes we have to be careful about validity, though. So we have to be, when we look at sources and things. That's why you don't want to use Wikipedia, for research purposes. Data not consistent with needs. It might match sort of what you're asking, but not exactly. It's sort of like tailored clothing for primary, pitch you exactly a question specific to your business, versus secondary. And age, is it relevant? Is it recent enough to still be relevant? That's another thing to consider. So this slide right here is a key one to consider with secondary data. But even with those things said, things like sales data, past sales data, as long as it's not too old and it's still relevant, it can be highly valuable, because this is hard numbers from customers at what they purchase or what they haven't purchased, timing, all that stuff. Data mining, you've heard of. All this stuff with AI is secondary data. Use it to your advantage. Good way to compare primary and secondary data, see if there's correlations and things like that, or if there's consistency. So evaluating it, again, you want to be critically evaluate what you use and how you use it, but very important. Trend analysis. This is where new businesses have a hard time, because they don't have that track record. They don't have that database of sales that they can learn from. Oops, I'm sorry. There we go. So fact-finding, environmental scanning, secondary data from competitors is great too, that's published at least. Secondary data shows the value of what's most important to customers. It absolutely does, because this is what they bought. Again, these are hard numbers. This is quantitative data. It can be used for qualitative purposes, though. So that's the key thing to remember. Forecasting sales, estimating market potential. Again, secondary data already exists. It can be cheap to get. And here's a good example, or an example. Data mining, data analytics, neural networks, very hot job prospects in data mining, data analytics, those types of people. Data mining, looking for correlations, deep dive into it's existing. When you mine for gold, you're looking for yellow metal through all that dirt. Same thing here. You're looking for things that are useful to your decision making, actionable data. Market basket, customer discovery, relationship marketing, who, what, when, where. If we can gather the weather information, weather certainly influences what people buy and when they buy it. So we might want to correlate those things. CRM database, customer relationship management things, can be very powerful as well. So sources, accounting information, sales, customer complaints, again, intranets, external secondary sources, library of internet vendors. Again, but we have to be careful with the internet. Make sure they're not trying to sell you something, or it's biased data. That's what we're trying to avoid. There's a good flow chart. Commercial sources are available too. Might cost you a little bit, but can be highly powerful. And understand, a lot of this data that's stored, for example, from social media, is valuable because it's stored, categorized, sorted, and that might be a big chunk of what you do for your project. Billions of consumers, we want to keep an eye on that. Single source government agencies around the world. The chapter gives you a good overview of these things. Very valuable information, very baseline stuff, but the more you understand, the more valuable you can be to your company or your job pursuits or whatever it might be. But good stuff. Do note these things. CIA Fact Book is another one. CIA.gov. CIA Fact Book is what it used to be called. That's some good stuff with international data. Very reliable. So take care. If you need things, let me know.